podcast, TruthSeekahs podcast. Buckle up, everyone. We're going to talk aliens, UFOs, ghosts, spiritual and paranormal. From all of the three moons, beyond your wildest dreams. Dead Tony. Nice.
TruthSeekah and or its affiliates are not responsible for any strange phenomena that may occur during or after listening to this podcast, which may include the following: heightened senses of awareness, psychic abilities, UFO sightings, alien contact, time loss, out-of-body experiences, ringing in the ears, ESP, lucid dreaming, increased synchronicities, astral projection, telepathy, stronger intuition, levitation, miraculous healings, and or remote viewing. Please be advised to listen at your own discretion.
Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? To a place to walk on troubled seas, faith to stand when I don't believe. I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come?
You are now locked into the TruthSeekah podcast.
Gargoyles! Psychics! Everything's ungodly! Dark savage!
Streaming live at TruthSeekah.com.
She's not a Christian!
Give it up, y'all.
Your portal to the paranormal, esoteric, and all things spiritual.
She's tampering in dark-sided stuff!
And now, your host, TruthSeekah.
How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? This is the TruthSeekah podcast. I'm your host, TruthSeekah. Excited and delighted to be with you guys again for another show. We're going to be talking all things spiritual. We're going to be talking about the soul, the higher self, the spirit. It's going to be good. Make sure you stay tuned. I want to say a huge thank you to everybody supporting my work via Patreon. Without your support, believing in the vision, this is not possible. So thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for coming on board and partnering with the vision. You guys are the enablers. You make this thing possible. I want to give a shout out to one of the newest patrons we have within the last couple of days. Shout out to Luna Faye. Thank you so much for coming on. You guys are awesome. And let's see here. Yeah, if you want to support, go to patreon.com/TruthSeekah. There you get access to my entire discography of music, guided meditations, behind the scenes, back end stuff, bunch of extra stuff. You also get access to our Thursday night School of the Mystics, which is the community aspect to what we're building here. We do guided meditations, tap into prayer, healing, do practice tapping into the prophetic as well. So if any of that kind of stuff interests you, tapping into the seer abilities, that kind of thing, make sure that you check it out. You get access to that by becoming a patron at any level. Patreon.com/TruthSeekah. Also, if you have not had a chance, make sure you go and pick up a copy of my new book, Spirit Realm, Angels, Demons, Spirits, and the Sovereignty of God, forward by Jordan Maxwell. It is on Amazon, or you can just go straight to TruthSeekah.com and get access to all of this stuff as well. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring on today's guest. My guest today is David Schwerin. Did I say it right?
That's close enough.
Close enough, man. Welcome to the podcast. How are you, man?
I'm real good, thanks.
Awesome, man. So
glad to be here.
Good to have you. You got an awesome story. Got a bunch of questions for you, and excited about your book that just came out. And so before we jump into that discussion and all that kind of stuff, just kind of give the guests an overview about who you are, what you bring to the table. We'll start there with a brief introduction.
Okay, I'll try and keep it brief because it can get long. Stop me if I go too long. Anyway, I've been on a spiritual path for maybe 40 years or more. And about 20 years ago, 22 years actually, I was guided to connect with a person in New York. I'm in Philadelphia, and to learn channeling. And I did it a little bit reluctantly, but I went up to New York and learned the rudiments of channeling. And as a result, I was introduced to the higher self of the woman who does channeling, as well as her co-leader in the channeling school, Archangel Michael. And so it's been 22 years now that I've been getting guidance from the spirit realm. And you can call it higher self, you can call it whatever you want, because everybody has a different name. It doesn't really matter, it's all energy. As a result of that, I've done some work. I've written 3 books. I've done some work in China for the last 20 years. And all of it's been guided, and I've been helped along the way in different ways. And most recently, I was encouraged or asked to write a book about the soul by Archangel Michael. My co-author is Diana Munz Chen, who is the person who has been teaching the channeling. And so we finished the book a couple months ago, Know Your Soul, Bring Joy to Your Life. And it tells everything you want to know about the soul, or at least everything I could think of about the soul. You may want to know a few other things, but I think I know a lot. And I've been taking a course with Archangel Michael for the last 5 years about the soul to clear and to make myself open to connect with my soul. So that's a real brief description. I can move you into any direction you want.
Yeah. What is your background in? Like,
well,
where did you start with your?
Well, that's sort of interesting. I started in the field of investments. That was my career. It lasted about 20, 25 years when I was guided to sell my business. And that's when I wrote my first book. So I bring to the table some pretty mundane and practical stuff, as well as some airy-fairy spiritual stuff. And I try and make everything practical, because anything is spiritual is practical. And if it's not practical, it's not spiritual. Mm-hmm. So that's a brief description of where I come from.
For sure. We'll definitely talk about the soul in the new book. And we're talking about your background right now.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about conscious capitalism, with having to deal with, the monetary system and being spiritual at the same time is kind of hard to navigate through for a lot of people. It's, that all of this should be done for free. You should put your book out and give it away for free. You should do your services for free. All of this kind of stuff. Your book, Conscious Capitalism, what does that tackle in that book?
Okay, well, that was the first book I was guided to write, and I combined spiritual principles with everyday practical business aspects, and show how they're interrelated, that they are one and the same. That if you act responsibly, you want to follow spiritual principles and do what's best for all stakeholders in the business. Unlike business up till the point, maybe slightly before I started writing my book, but around the same time, the late 90s, business was focused on shareholders. Where can we get the most profit? And the purpose of the book is to show that you really will do financially quite well if you take care of everybody. If you take care of your shareholders, you take care of your customers, and you take care of the environment. In the long run, that's going to be what's best for you. And so I combine these two principles, spiritual principles, with practical business aspects, and show that they're really interrelated and they're one and the same. And to make a business that's sustainable and a society that's sustainable, we have to act responsibly and take care of all people. And so it's social responsible business is a term that's often used. Although that was the term when I wrote my book. Now it's called either corporate social responsibility or environmental, social, and governance, but it's all the same thing. It's just acting, in a way that is we're all in this together, and we need to share the resources. That doesn't mean we give things away. You have to be sustainable. You have to make a profit to continue to exist and to pay your bills, but you don't have to make an excessive profit. And and share, because everything we get is given to us. Really, we don't always realize it. Sometimes we're put in a position where things just fall into place and we make a lot of money. But as you learn about the spiritual realm, you find out that we're given these experiences for a reason, whether it's experience of poverty or wealth. There's lessons to be learned in both of them. And if we can step back and realize and express gratitude for whatever we have, because there's a lesson in it, there's something that we need to learn. And and I've seen that more and more as I've traveled the spiritual path, as well as worked in the business world.
I want to talk a little bit about the genesis of your spiritual awakening, spiritual experience. What led you to get into channeling? Like, what was the motivator that opened up that door for you to go to an event like that, or kind of peer into that realm?
Well, I've been going to healers for a number of years, probably since the early 90s. And I have been encouraged to learn channeling throughout that period, that 10-year period maybe. And I struggle with it. Channeling requires trust, complete trust, because you never know what the next words are going to come through. And so that was something I needed to learn, to trust. And so channeling was my avenue to learn that. And I was eventually guided to go to the school for channeling. My first book, The Conscious Capitalism we talked about, was co-authored, you might say, although not always consciously, with my guide, who is Hermes. Hermes is generally a well-known figure and known as the founder of alchemy, for instance. So he worked with me on the first book as well as my other writing, and I wouldn't call my writing channeled, most of it. I have channeled some, and quite honestly, I'm a beginner at channeling. Channeling is a lifelong experience. It takes a lifetime to become a skilled channeler, maybe even longer than that. So I'm early in the process. But I have channeled some things, and I receive other information. I don't know where it comes from sometimes. I just know. So
it makes it easier to articulate when we can say where it comes from. Comes from, though, right? Even though,
absolutely.
And I'm sure, even though you get better with it, the information that comes through is still a bit slippery at times when you're tapping into the spirit, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And you have to trust. You have to trust and have faith, and that's not always easy to do.
Now, when it comes to like having a background with a belief system or faith that would help you navigate through some of this stuff or articulate it, were you devoted to any spiritual path? Do you have any belief system that really helps you navigate through this stuff?
Well, I started, I guess, in the late or early 80s. I had dabbled for a number of years in reading different things and studying different things. But in the beginning 80s, I connected with a mystery school. Mystery school, for those who may not know, is a school mystery school has been around for thousands of years. And a mystery school the intent is to have a place where people who are interested in the mysteries of life could be educated, so to speak. And for many, many years, they were kept secret because they were frowned upon and ridiculed and that sort of thing. It's only been in the last 50 to 100 years that they've come out into the open. So I found a mystery school that appealed to me, and I started studying with it in the early 80s. And the material was channeled, and it consisted of lessons, one lesson a week this mystery school sent out to the students. Each lesson's maybe 10 pages. And I studied the material. I was really drawn to it. And I studied the material for close to 15 years, one lesson a week. I mean, when that lesson came in, that's where my focus was. And I learned a lot. At the end of that 15-year period, when the material was completed, I was looking around because I knew I still had work to do, still things that I, didn't understand, or personal, emotional, and psychological things I needed to work through. So I found, again, just coincidentally, was led to another mystery school, another school that was, again, based on mystery teachings, but was updated for the latest psychological material. Because many years ago, thousands of years ago, psychology was not a discipline that anyone knew about. It wasn't until Freud or at that time when it really became well known. So this other school called Pathwork, which is similar insofar as there are 258 lectures that were channeled, and it's a complete cosmology of almost anything you can think of. And so again, I went into that pretty in depth, and I've been studying it for the last 25 years or so. And that's the material. We haven't talked about this. I don't know if you want to, but that's material that recently I've tried to take to China because I don't know if you want to go into the China aspect. But
yeah, we can.
Okay. So my first book, Conscious Capitalism, was translated into Chinese and published in China in about 2000, year 2000. And I was invited to go over there and began to give lectures. And the first lecture I gave was to the Communist Party school, a school where Communist Party leaders come back to get training. And quite honestly, it was a little frightening. I didn't know what to expect, and I didn't know how they would receive what I was going to talk about, which was conscious capitalism. And they took to it, and to my great surprise. And they put my book in their bookstore, and they wrote it about in the newsletter. And I found my picture on a bus in China. And the bottom line was that this idea of social responsible business, whatever you want to call it, has taken off in China. It's Chinese's own version. It may not be exactly what I had in mind, but it has a lot of very good aspects. And so that has instituted in China. Now, when I was going over to China, I've taken 9 trips to China now. And about the first or second trip there, I realized the Chinese people, that while they have a deep spiritual connection, the government pretty well keeps it suppressed. And it appeared to me that they were seeking, they were yearning for more spiritual information. So after I had launched the conscious capitalism, or the social responsible business material, and gained some credibility because of it, I decided to try and introduce this pathwork material. And I did that in 2005. I started it. Actually, I was initially told, my guidance was it was too early to start when I first had the idea. And then I have been working, trying to find the right people. And again, you can't broadcast this thing in China. You can't, it's not like here where you could go on social media and say, here's something I'm offering. Anyone interested, give me a call. So you have to operate a little bit under the radar. And so it took me, I started by, the only thing I could really think of was to expose the Pathwork books and other writing and see who would resonate with it and who would be attracted to it. So I got some Pathwork books translated and started to translate some other articles. And it's taken me quite a few years. I was told it would take a while, but I found some people very deeply involved and interested in spiritual work in China. And we've had 4 workshops now in China on pathwork. And Pathwork is an international organization, and we're now starting to get some real interest in the work. So I don't know if I answered your question or I just went off on a tangent.
Yeah, no, it's good to know the background of what you've been doing, and it's very dangerous. I'm reading some of the comments in the chat, and a lot of people are talking about where spirituality and some of those things are, you can't even talk about that stuff publicly. You know, people get in trouble for meditating and things like that, you know, and they're really strict on that stuff. So like when you talked about being in fear with sharing some of the spiritual aspects, and then, you know, the capitalist side as well, you know, it's kind of like a double whammy there, you know?
Absolutely. So. And,
we're
all the same. All people everywhere are the same. Yeah. We all have the same longings. Sometimes it's harder to express, or either for cultural reasons or for personal, dogma, beliefs, whatever. But we all basically have the same desires and the same longing. And it takes a little while to get through that. But if you're persistent, and you get a lot of help from spirit, all this work that I've done in China, I've got guidance on. I was helped to know my next steps and what I should focus on. And I have no doubt, in fact, I'm certain that a lot of the groups that I talked to were brought together in some manner with spiritual being involved, spirit being involved. I would go over to China sometimes, not even knowing who I was going to talk to, or if I was going to talk to anybody, if anyone was going to show up. And, I had people, I gave 13 lectures on one trip. And when I went over there, I didn't even know if I was going to have anybody. So, the spirit is working to bring the right people together who are interested and so that this information can be brought to the masses. I'm sorry, you have a question, or I could go on?
Well, I was just going to say, what was it that prompted you to really devote yourself to this instead of just kind of leaving like your background in finances and, making all this money and focusing on that to really get into the spiritual work? Was there something that you felt like was missing?
Well, no, to be honest with you, again, I'd been receiving guidance for a while, and I had gotten to trust it. The information was good. I could tell that. And one day, the guidance I received was, it's time to sell your business. It was scary because I didn't know what would come next. And I didn't know what income would be coming next, if any. And I hesitated a little bit, but then I took the leap and sold my business and started to write my first book, and things just flowed from there. You have to have some faith, and you don't know what the next step is going to be, but there are no accidents, and you get what you need. And so that's one of the lessons that I've learned.
That's awesome. So what was it that you found out, like, in connecting with the soul?
Okay. Well, I mentioned Archangel Michael earlier, and I've had a connection with him for a while, and he's been one of my guides, in fact. And he started a program 5 years, or actually a little more than 5 years ago, for helping people connect to their soul. And I was interested in that, and so I joined the program, and we started out with weekly sessions, and it's all again channeled, and then it became monthly. So we've had monthly sessions for most of the past 5 years, where he clears the body, he takes care of karma, he gives energy transmissions, and he gives some information on the soul. It's not really so much information, it's just preparing your body so that you can make a better connection to your soul. And so I've been taking that course for 5 years, as I said, a little more than that. And about a year or so ago, he asked Diana, my co-author, and I, if we would write a book about the soul. And he provided a lot of the information.
How did that
And
process go of getting it? Was it like going into trance? Is that something that you do, go into like the trance state and then get the information, come out and write it? Or was it kind of just like downloaded to you as you were writing? How did the process work with that?
Well, again, a lot of it was channeled. Some of it, I'm sure I was inspired to write some of it, but a lot of it was channeled. And whenever we had a question or we got to a point where we didn't know where to go next, we could always ask him. I mean, he's a wonderful energy, human being, not a human being. He's a wonderful being who's always here to help us. And in fact, just as an aside that just came to me, my last trip to China was when the U.S. and China were at loggerheads over the trade dispute, and this was back in the late summer, and there was a lot of name calling going back and forth, and it was unpleasant, and I was a little nervous about having to go back to China again in that environment. And I asked Michael, I said, I'm a little bit nervous about this. And he said, he asked, when are we going? He said, don't worry, you'll be protected. So, I mean, we get a lot of help. Sometimes we're aware of it, conscious of it, and sometimes we're not. But one of the things I've learned that most people may not be as comfortable in knowing is that the universe is friendly. The universe wants to help us. We're safe. We're loved, and we're eternal. And if we know that, and the universe is trying to help us, it takes a lot of the fear out of life, which we all have. And so that's an important aspect. You have to come to the conclusion that the universe is friendly and help. Our soul wants us to grow and develop and to evolve. And so it gives us experiences that help us with that. Sometimes they stretch us and they're a little bit nerve-wracking. But if we can go with it, if we can surrender, that's one of the lifelong lessons that we all have to learn, is to surrender. To don't forget, the soul sees the big picture. We don't.
Where is the soul?
The soul, okay, well, the soul is all around us and within us to begin with. The soul is in the book. In the book, Know Your Soul, Bring Joy to Your Life. We have an illustration of the soul and what it's composed of. And so, first of all, if you start at the lowest denominator, there's the physical body. The physical body has a personality. That's who we are, the personality. And then around us is an energy field. And the soul is part of that energy field. And at the edge of that energy field, our personal energy field, is our higher self. Our higher self is here to guide us and to mentor us. And that's what I've been getting for the last 22 years, mentoring by the higher self. And then if you go a little bit further out, there are other parts of the soul, but all that is interconnected and it's all one. We just like to separate it out so we understand it, and we give it names. And some people call it one thing, some people call it something else. But it's all one, just like we're all part of source, of divine. But we separate it out to try and understand it. And so the soul is the first individuation from source. It is what comes from source, and it's a hologram of source. It's an exact replica, you might say. Its vibrations are slightly lower, and of course, all of the soul has different gradations of vibration down to the physical body, which is the lowest vibration. And but it's all connected. It's all one. Again, we just separate it out to try and understand it. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I
again,
mean,
there's
I've heard different things, and a lot of what you're speaking about, it seems like it sounds similar to what some people would call the higher self, you know, the soul. But
so,
you would say, would that be something different, or?
well, again, different people use different names,
Yeah.
but it's all energy, and you can call it the soul, the higher self. You can call it. You can change as long as there's a function and a vibration to everything, and what you call it just depends on your background and what you're taught, maybe. But in my cosmology and in Michael's cosmology, the soul is the highest vibration, and it comes directly from source. And the higher self is a little bit lower vibration. But you can flip them if you like, if that's more comfortable. You can call the highest vibration higher self.
How does when you have these transmissions and things from Michael, how does he speak? How does he show up? Or
Well, again, it's almost all channeled, other than inspiration that we might get. But it's all channeled, and it's like I'm speaking to you. He is an incredibly warm, friendly.
do you see him, or is it just an impression with your eyes closed, or how does that work?
It's really verbal. It's verbal. Now, that's not to say some people can't see him. I think Diana sees him. My vision is not opened to the extent that hers is, but I can feel him. His energy is incredibly strong. When he has a program and I listen to it at night, I can't go to sleep afterwards because the energy is so high. So, you know, we all have different senses that are open, and a stronger sense of mine is feeling, being able to feel energy. And so when he's there, I know it.
Now, what about the polar opposite, being able to feel an entity and an angelic being that has a beautiful auric field, raises your vibration just to be around them? Have you felt the polar opposite with negative entities, or entities that are there to suck the energy out of the room or the life off of a person? Have you ever felt those things as well?
I can't say that I have, to be honest with you. Certainly there are negative entities out there.
Never met like in the spiritual circles, being in the spiritual, like some of the people who are dealing with dark entities, that you can even just feel it off of them, any of that kind of stuff?
Be honest with you, I can't. I haven't. Now, I did start a session with Michael once where he said, we have to stop right now. I have to clear your energy field because there was something attached to me, some energy attached to me. Quite honestly, I didn't feel it, but he recognized it and wanted it cleared.
That's interesting. I've I think people's discernment's different too. Like, you know, that you're just more apt to seeing something or feeling something because you're familiarizing yourself with the energy. So if you're around a bunch of people who are manipulators or who are lying, or they're just in it to get what they can, like, you can kind of sense the energy and the feelings of the person, the intent. You can feel the intent of an individual, or a spirit for that matter, that an individual has come into agreement with.
This is not exactly what you're talking about, but I have felt where two individuals were in conflict, and there was a lot of negativity going back and forth. I have felt that energy. So, but I can't, and I can't say that I have.
But you have felt the beautiful ones. Now, has there been other beings or angels other than Michael? Like, you're talking about Hermes and things like that?
Hermes, I channel Hermes every day, almost every day. And when I channel him, I call him in. I feel his energy. I ask him to join with me, and his energy comes right through my sixth chakra. And when he leaves, I feel it go out my sixth chakra. So from that standpoint, yeah, I feel him a lot. The higher self that I've been working with for the last 20 some years, when I'm in her presence, and I say her only because it's channeled by a female. There's no male or female in spirit.
Now, what's the practical reasons for connecting with the soul? Like, because, spirituality is practical. I've been saying it. You've said it a couple times already. Like, what are the practical reasons? How do we make it real versus the woo-woo far out stuff, which is so intriguing and sexy at times?
Sure. Well, again, in the book, Know Your Soul, Bring Joy to Your Life, we have a meditation that helps you connect to your soul. So there is a very specific, and again, Archangel Michael provided that meditation. So when you connect to your soul, first of all, you know that you're connected to everything. You know that you know that you're loved and you're safe and you're eternal, because the soul is eternal. And to the extent that your life just works better, you have access to information that you wouldn't have otherwise. You have access to energy that you wouldn't have otherwise, and we all are here we all have a task, and we agreed to that task before we come in the body, and to follow that task through and accomplish it is something that our soul has asked us to do, in a sense. And when we do that, and I'll get more specific, when I completed a task that I was asked to do, which was involving in China, I got one day, I had a session, and very unexpectedly, I certainly wasn't expecting it, I was told that my soul had decided that my life should be extended. In other words, I completed my task, and normally when we complete our task, it's time to go back and regroup and get ready for something new. In this case, my soul, that wasn't my decision, but my soul decided that my life should be extended to do other work here while I'm here. It's called reincarnation in the same body. And it's something, other people have experienced. I don't think it's widely experienced, but it's something that's not unique to me. And it's a process. It took me a year and a half or more to go through that process. And what happens is your energy system is first dissolved and then rebuilt with a new line of purpose, a new assignment, so to speak. And during my sessions with higher self, it was explained to me what was happening, which part of my body was being dissolved, and where a new energy was being created. And so by having a deeper connection with your soul, following your soul's longing, finishing your task, you have the opportunity to extend your life. And this is something, it's important for everyone to know this, not only because it may motivate them to follow through with whatever their task is, but also to know that this is going to be more common in years in the future, because by extending your life, you have a chance to accelerate your evolution. It speeds things up. You don't have to die and then come back again, which is it's a laborious process. So this is something that more and more people will be experiencing in the near future, because soul and spirit wants to accelerate our evolution, and this is one way to help speed things up.
Do you think that, have you seen over the last 20 years, like a spike or a boom in spirituality and people getting into spiritual topics, maybe finding an alternative to mainstream religions and things like that. Obviously, in the 70s was kind of like a huge boom, and then 80s and 90s were it was there. But you think that now with the internet and Hollywood and things like that, people are looking at spiritualism as an option like never before?
Yeah, that's a good question. And the answer is absolutely. And I'll give you some examples. The internet now is filled with very advanced teachers who are giving courses online, covering a wide variety of subjects from health to connecting to spirit and almost everything you can think of. And people from all over the world are watching these programs, are subscribing to them. Some of them have hundreds of thousands of people who are connected to the programs. So that's one example of how things are speeding up and people are being attracted to this. And there was another example I was just thinking of, and I can't remember right now. But the answer is absolutely. I know what it is. In popular culture, you're seeing much more about all these topics, whether it's in movies or in books. There's been a number of movies about the soul recently. There are many books that are out there, but more and more people are talking about the topic. So that's the way things get disseminated. Often it starts in popular culture, and then from there, an example maybe is yoga. I remember when yoga first was brought to the West. First people poo-pooed it, and said or acupuncture, and now it's become part of the normal course of talking about things. So it's growing exponentially.
Yeah, it's interesting. It definitely is. Again, with the internet and knowledge, and all you gotta do is Google something, and you'll be led to a website that suck you in, or watch a documentary or something like that people are putting out on Netflix or YouTube. People are making them for themselves, but I think people just being open and honest about their story is helping it catch on as well too.
I think so. Yeah. And quite honestly, we're at an inflection point, you might say, in the world, where we have serious problems, whether they're economic or social or environmental, and it comes back to, in my view, people don't understand who they are and what they're here for, and as a result, too often, we take this selfish, short-sighted view of things. And that's what leads to environmental problems and inequality problems and all of our problems, financial problems. We have loaded up on debt, everybody borrowing money. And these problems are going to come to a screeching halt with major problems if we don't address them. And so knowing who we are helps to get through that, because when we know we're all connected, why would you hurt somebody or take a short-sighted view of things? There's no reason to take a short-sighted view when you know you're eternal. There's no reason to hurt somebody when you know you're connected to them. It's like hitting yourself. You wouldn't hit yourself. Well, what I do to someone else, I do to myself. So as we learn those things, it's simply the golden rule, actually. But as we learn those things, we act differently.
You talk about like people doing this stuff, but calling it different names, whether it's the universe, some people will say God, maybe even instead of Michael, they'll say Jesus. Heck, there's a bunch of teachings where people believe that Jesus is Michael, So do you see people who are following still some of these type of traditions, but through religion or right? So they're connected with the universe, or God, and they're choosing good, and they're connecting with a higher source, and they're feeling inspired, and they're, received, and they overcome the fear of death and all of this kind of stuff, and they're still dealing with a religion. Do you think that they're doing similar practices to what you've uncovered, but just under different names, but it still kind of produces the same results?
Yeah, absolutely. We all have different paths. We're all unique, and we'll be drawn to what is right for us. Some people are right brain, some people are left brain, some people, just resonate with artistic things, and they're all avenues. We're all helped in the way we need to be helped, and we all need different things.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, did your book, when did your book come out?
The book came out a couple of months ago, and it's something that I think everybody will find useful, and it's challenging. There are some challenges because some of the terms are not familiar, but but everyone has said it's well explained, and if you just simply take it step by step, and it's a very short book, but it has a lot of material that will be helpful to people. And so I've had very good feedback on it, and I think those in your audience would be very interested in the book. Know Your Soul, because here's the thing: know your soul, bring joy to your life. So I mean, you bring joy to your life because once you know your soul, you know that you're loved, you know that you're eternal, and you know you're safe. And what could be more joyous than to know those things? And the book will help you to see that.
So I guess you could say knowing your soul is essentially knowing who you really are.
Exactly, because you are part of a soul.
And people have an identity crisis, and they just adapt to whatever's around them, almost like a chameleon, just to fit in. But they don't know who they are because their identity's lost outside of themselves. But when you know your soul, when you're able to go in and be comfortable in your own skin and your own beliefs and your own experiences, that's really where breakthrough happens, right?
Absolutely. And when you know that, we can solve some of these problems, if they're not solved, they'll lead to a crisis. And a crisis is not as bad as it sounds, because people tend to want to, they want the status quo. They don't want to change. All of us are like that, and to one degree or another. And a crisis forces us to change. So you want to know that you're connected to something that's eternal when you go through a crisis, because that's a very comforting understanding. But at the same time, we have to make some changes, and very practical ones. That's where my practical side comes in. We know that the environment is suffering, and that might require some sacrifices, and no one likes to make any sacrifices. Well, if we have a crisis, we won't have a choice. And it's unfortunate we have to do it that way, but sometimes that's the way things have to happen, because people won't change unless they're forced to.
So the information you're getting when you connect, you said it's practical information, and it's to help you. Is it just kind of like to get your own house in order, to kind of make better changes and be a better person? And what do you do to kind of collect that good karma, if you will, and be in good energy? Is it like inspirations like that you're getting?
Well, the key to all this is to know yourself. And that means know some of the negativities you have. We all have negativities. None of us are perfect.
Character flaws.
When you know it, you can make changes. You say, oh, I'm doing the same thing over again. I think I want to change, and you set an intention to change that. And it doesn't happen automatically. You have to keep after it. But as we all purify, so to speak, and get rid of our negativity, then the whole world becomes more harmonious and a place we want to live rather than where we have conflict all the time and disharmony. So, but each individual has to do their own work. And as we all do our own work, things will change. We have to do our own work personally, and we have to do some work out in the world, which means we have to, take care of the environment, reduce inequality, get our financial house in order, stop, living beyond our means. Those things which are practical, but they're also needed in order to have a sustainable lifestyle here as while we're in our body.
One thing I've always questioned, because you have a lot of people, and it seems like you were able to do this even before the spirituality came along, to be able to kind of navigate through life and be successful and things like that. For me, I use spirituality as well, like going into the spirit realm, getting inspiration and receiving downloads about, what I'm supposed to do with my life and stuff and how to do it. Some people are just good at that without even tapping into the spirit realm at all, or using these terms that we're talking about. And I wonder, are they doing it as well by default, but they just don't put any woo-woo in it? Is it just how their mind is hardwired to kind of the imagination or work ethic and things like that, and being faithful with what they're given, those kind of things?
Well, a lot depends on our conditioning. When we're raised as a young child and go to school and all that, we're taught certain beliefs, and depending what those beliefs are, it'll affect our decision making. So it'll be easier or harder depending upon the beliefs that we have and whether those beliefs are accurate or whether they're distortions. But as we grow and change and get to know ourselves better, we're able to be inspired. So sometimes we don't even know why we're doing things, but we get the inspiration. And another way is you look at your life and you say, am I fulfilled? Are things going the way I want? If they're not doing that, then it means there's probably something else you need to look at, some other path you need to take or something of that sort. If things are going well and you feel fulfilled, then it's likely that you are following what your soul has wants you to do. So that's the gauge. And of course, if you find that you're not fulfilled and you need to make a change, pray, meditate, open yourself up to receive. And you may not even be conscious of receiving it, but you'll be inspired to make the changes that you need to make.
Yeah, I think that I think life is spiritual in general, and some of us just have a different way of articulating it, or making it more magical, or making it sound a little bit more whimsical, because it is practical. Spirituality is practical, and if we can't implement the woo-woo and the metaphysical into our reality to make us better people, you know what I'm saying, better fathers, better husbands, better friends, better acquaintances, and then it's kind of in vain, all of the spirituality and stuff, because there's people who are doing that stuff really good without the woo-woo spirituality stuff.
One of the problems is that our technological advances have exceeded our spiritual awareness. We're out of balance there. We're so focused on technological things that that the material gets all our attention, and the spiritual much less so. And we have to bring that into better balance. And we just have to remember, we are spiritual beings having a physical experience, not the other way around. Sometimes we think, well, we're a physical being and that's all we really need to know. But when we keep in mind that we are spiritual beings, and therefore our priorities and values have to be in alignment with spirit. And I guess if you want to keep it the simplest possible, the golden rule, if you follow that golden rule, you're doing most of what you need to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely on the path of love, and you know,
Mhm.
put it, you know what I'm saying, thinking of others as higher than yourself, esteeming others higher than yourself, but really going a little bit deeper and seeing everyone as an extension of yourself, like you
Exactly.
said. And I think that that's what a
Exactly.
lot of us come down to, even from the Christian tradition. You know, it talks about believers being all together the body of Christ, like we're one
Mm.
body, we are
Mhm.
of one accord, and you know, and not and for the body not to harm itself, and not to and understand that a body has different functions,
Mhm.
legs, eyes, ears, toes, feet, and not being mad at the other parts of the body because it doesn't look like you, it doesn't operate like you, and really understanding what that is as a human race, you know, and how we are all connected to the same body, and
Yeah,
being
a
able to
little
appreciate
story.
what everybody brings to the table.
I don't know how we're doing with time, but a quick little story. One of my first experiences when I was connected with spirit was that I developed Lyme disease for a couple different episodes, and it was purposeful. I had implanted in me something that would attract that, and the reason I was told is so that I would um, get to know my body better. I would be forced to go in and see what was going on inside my body. So you know, we have to. Our body is an incredible vehicle for us, and we have to know it and respect it and treat it right. So,
Yeah, it's you know, there's a lot of people believe that the symptoms that you're showing are always a result or a cause of something spiritual
mhm,
happening in your life.
they are. I believe that absolutely.
So, well, your new book is available. Where's the best place for people to go get it? Know Your
It's
Soul.
it's it's on Amazon,
The
and
cover looks
it's
really amazing. I love the cover.
we worked hard on that, and I think it depicts the soul about as well as you can in physical color, and the material in the book I think people will really find revealing, because some material in there is not, you won't find out elsewhere. Um, so Michael purposely wanted to bring this information forward at this point, and he has encouraged us to disseminate the book widely. And so that's really what I'm uh, trying to do.
Awesome. So you can go to get that on Amazon. Know Your Soul by David Schwerin. Schwerin. Did I say it
Sh-
right?
Schwerin,
Schwerin.
whatever you say is
There'll be
good.
a link there, and you can just type it in. Man, David, I appreciate you coming on, sharing your story, man, and everything that you brought to the table. So thanks so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Good. Bye bye.
David Schwerin, ladies and gentlemen. Good stuff. Know your soul. Know thyself, and then you will be known. You need to know yourself, inwardly and outwardly. Your kicks and your hang-ups. You know what I'm saying? Connecting with your higher self, higher intelligences, God, source. He called it the universe. A lot of people use universe. Universe is. He said the universe was love, or the universe is. For some reason, my mind goes back to a lyric by Maynard. It says, you know, the universe is hostile, so impersonal, devour to survive, like life consumes life, you know. So to think of the universe being love, I know it sounds cool, but the universe don't care about you. That's the difference between, like, for me, calling God the universe or calling it the same thing. I know people mean well and they kind of mean the same thing, but it's different. God is personal. The universe isn't personal. It just is. Eat you up, spit you out. God is a personal, a friend. Universe isn't your friend, you know? So interesting. Just something to point out that I've been pondering, calling God the universe or source, you know, all these different words that people use or whatever. So yeah, check it out if you're interested in that, knowing your soul, connected to the higher self. I definitely believe that we are connected with the higher self, with our higher self. We're seated with Christ in heavenly places, our perfected self, as some would say. I know Gil teaches on that, the engaging with your perfected self. So again, we're talking about like a lot of people speaking about the same thing, but just having the terminology being different. You know, again, I got Christian friends who talk about engaging with the higher self or your perfected self. And the terms and things will offend people. You know, people are married to their tradition. They're married to their terms and ideas. And if anything comes to the table that's outside that, then they think it's different. They think it's not the same. It was funny because when I interviewed Kirby the other day, which was an awesome interview, probably a top 10 for me. We're talking about the Kundalini and Tachyon and Chi and all that kind of stuff, and then we're talking about connecting with the spirit realm, and he was talking about the processes of being very much the same. Some people would say, even with like leaving your body or ascending to the higher states of consciousness, and some people would call it astral travel. Some people call it spirit travel, but he's like, same thing. So I really agree with that. And so again, we have to, you know, disconnect from our terminology, you know, of thinking that we have it all figured out, but still be open to explore, but still know your truth, man, and what works for you. You know, and that's what people are. I think that's why they're married to their terminology, because it works for them, you know, and they got something different. And I've been talking about this a lot lately, is that, you know, we mentioned, you know, anything that you mention, there's a doctrine and a belief behind it that means something totally different than what you're even talking about. So that's the thing with me, like interviewing a bunch of people, whether they're spiritualists or psychics or mediums, or this guy's a channeler, channeling Michael, you know, I find that the similarities, you know, with my faith, being a Christian, and I channel the Holy Spirit, channel Jesus, channel the Father's heart. Father, what are you saying? Tell me what you would want to tell them, using the spiritual gifts, quickening of the Holy Spirit, word of wisdom, discernment. All of these things, I believe, are channeling God's heart to people. And we read the gospel. I mean, that's we're channeling through you know what I'm saying, through the word of God, the written word, you know, sharing it that way. But we talk about these terms, and people start looking into channeling or channeling other entities or other beings or whatever. There's other books and belief systems that are tied into that they don't, even though there's a similarity there, they mean something totally different. And I know that that's definitely with some of the taboo stuff, and I've always pointed this out with, like, you know, the stuff that I interview with these people. Same thing goes for the Christian terms too. You know, you mentioned there was somebody sent me this guy the other day. They want me to interview him, which he just went live I'm trying to set it up where we can do a live stream. His name is Doug Wentz, and our schedules don't really work out, but he did a live stream talking about how there's just so many different understandings of what Jesus is, right, or what God is. You know, he really brought it to the table, and he showed it in the Bible, like how, like, Paul, you know, had a different Jesus as Peter, and they had all these different ways of doing things and what Jesus meant and what they thought he meant and things like that. And you definitely see that in Christendom. You have some people who say, well, God told me this, and then the Holy Spirit told me that, and there'll be like polar opposites of what was okay. You know, like God told me it was okay to smoke weed, or God told me it was okay to, you know, drink on the weekends or whatever. I mean, you hear all kind of crazy stuff that's just out of this world, especially in the churches. And you got people who are talking about God told me to start this, God told me to do that, and it doesn't pan out. They don't see it through. So it's like every thought that comes to their mind, they put God's name on it as a seal of instant validation. I mean, if I don't know who you are and you wrote a book and it was channeled by Michael, then it's like an instant validation. You know, I literally, I got an instant validation because Jordan Maxwell wrote my foreword. That's an instant, validation. People see that name and buy it. I've sold a lot of copies because people want to know what Jordan Maxwell wrote in my book, and then the fact that he endorses it. Okay, so that's an instant validation. It's a thing. So especially when it comes into the term of channeling, and putting God's name on it, especially if you're still learning and you're young in the faith, and someone says, God told me this, like, I'm going to give my ear. Oh, God told you that? Oh, wow. And I'm just kind of like blown. But you see that people just throw God's name on any and everything. And, versus, I came up with this. I studied really hard. I put these teachings together. You had to say, no, the Lord gave it to me, or I downloaded it from heaven, or angels came to me and brought these tablets. I mean, Joseph Smith, Paul, I'm an apostle of Jesus. Jesus knocked me off my horse and had this encounter. All of these religions, these major religions, are like founded upon some type of angelic encounter where it's an instant validation. It wasn't just they had a epiphany and came to this understanding. They have to kind of say it came from above, come from heaven or from an angel that brought them this information, because it'll get the lay people to believe. It's really interesting when it comes down to that. But the terms and ideas, again, we talk about the Holy Spirit or Kundalini or whatever this stuff, like, so some of the taboo stuff, even though it's the same thing in our mind, energy is energy, the euphoria, the presence and beauty that comes with it. Somebody will look it up and look into that and get into it, and they getting into stuff that's way like deep, and people are lying about their stories, and then they have other doctrines on how to engage with it that is just not godly. It's just demonic in nature, but they've kind of taken a piece of maybe what you said and they've looked into it for themselves, and they're off on some weird whim in another cult. You know what I'm saying? I've seen that, and I've had to kind of, try to correct course a little bit, and let people know, even on here, that just because I interview people doesn't mean I believe that they're telling the truth. I'm into this, the whole time I'm like psychologically evaluating people while I'm interviewing. And I know you guys are too. A lot of you are. I know Chris Garner, my good friend, like, he's definitely doing it. We chat back and forth. Good friends, like, wanting to see, why do people believe what they believe? What did they go through that? And there's a lot of similarities. You're talking about the pieces of the puzzle that begins to formulate a picture. A lot of similar. Trauma is a huge one. Trauma is huge, what that'll do to an individual. The loss of a loved one, losing a child, like what that does to an individual's mind, going through that pain and having to process it, and turning to religion or turning to God or turning to spiritualism or whatever, and seeing what that does for somebody. They call themselves a light worker. They're not a Christian. They don't identify with that doctrine, so they become a light worker, and they want to help people and do good, and an energy healer, and very same strain of thought within the churches. Someone who starts getting in the church, and they want to help, and they want to serve, and they want to make a recompense for their sin. And the Bible talks about bringing forth meat worthy of repentance. Look, let me show you that I'm sorry. Let me, just like, doing community service even, but that's mandatory. It's not like you're not using your free will to do it, but it's like, let me show you, let me work to pay off my debt. There's still some of that goes on. So I believe that, like, with being conscious of that, I think we're supposed to transcend that. We don't, we're not trying to offset the evil and the wicked that we've done. I mean, deep down, that's in there somewhere. Like, I used to be a bad person. I ripped people off. I cheated people. I've cheated on people. All of these different things that people have done. So now they're trying to do good to offset the negativity and the evil that they brought into the world, or the false doctrine that they've taught people. I got, people that I've interviewed on the podcast, and they've had a change of heart over the years. And now they're trying to, they don't want their interview up anymore. Something we did years ago, because they've had a change of heart. Now they want to take it down because they don't want to teach that stuff anymore, of a beautiful conversation that we've had years ago. And so, they want to take it down because they want to undo the things that they've done, and so we start going back through it. But the internet, a lot of this stuff lives forever. In some places, in some portion of the internet. Chris Garner says delusion is real. I mean, yeah, the Bible talks about strong delusions. You know what I'm saying? Like, what aspect of that delusion are you entertaining? Like, what aspect? Like, how deep is the delusion or disillusion, right? How deep is it? What are you communicating with? Like, I'm more of a skeptic, man. Even though I believe in a lot of this stuff, I have to approach it. I think there is a healthy skepticism that we all have to have with any and everything, and judge the fruit of it. Like what your belief system, what is it manifesting in your life? What type of person are you? And don't ask me, don't ask my friends, don't ask followers or people who are fans or your audience. Ask their family, man. Like, see what kind of person they really are behind closed doors, because there's some, like, cameras and microphones and stages and all of that stuff. You can be disillusioned for real when it comes to that. Again, I had people who worked for like TBN, good friends of mine, and they told me that's how evil and bitter and mean some of my favorite televangelists were. And all I got to see is when them lights, camera, action hit, hello, praise the Lord, beloved, praise the Lord, everyone, and dropping crazy biblical knowledge and blowing your mind with the scriptures. But behind closed doors, these people were short with people. They were demanding. They were, they were mean. They were bitter. They were yelling at people, and you just catch little glimpses of stuff, and you're like, wow, okay, that's the kind of person you are. So if that's the kind of person you are, I really don't care what you got to say. I don't care what you have to offer. If that's the fruit of it, the type of person that you are, your character doesn't match up to the stuff you're talking about. I want to know the character. I want to know if you're in there for, like, there's things that I'll lose you if you like. If you like left your kids, and you got a lot of ministers who don't even keep in touch with their kids, but they in ministry. You know what I'm saying? Like, they have kids from another woman that they've just disowned, or they don't, pay child support. Like, it's I don't even keep friends in my life like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you abandon your kids, and like, I want to see what type of person you are, man. And damn what you believe, because that don't mean nothing if it doesn't make you a better person. And it does, if you're not, it messes up the way you're doing life. So, Flying Penguins says, I like how Mike Parsons gives an annual update on his learnings. It's like he corrects differences in his own beliefs. That's good. Yeah, for sure. Like, I don't even, like, it's interesting because it's it would be hard for me even to do an annual thing, because some of it is just, they're just slightly changing over time, or there's a new aspect, and it doesn't like undo, everything. It's just you have more info on your own beliefs. I mean, first of all, any of the spiritual stuff for me is just proving to myself that any of this stuff is real. And that I'm a Berean myself, that I want to know, that I want to find out, was forget proven to you. I want to know for myself that this is what's going on. And I think that was a beautiful way to approach it. And it still is. You have to stay in that place of wanting to know for yourself, or wanting to know God for yourself, and a daily thing versus, 10 years ago, the Lord spoke to me on the Mount Sinai, or whatever the case is. Like, what has he said to you today? Like, what is the Lord saying to your heart today? Where are you at? I'm a teacher. I break this stuff down. I teach it. Yeah, me too. But like, to stay in that place of being hungry for what God is doing, and ever increasing, ever learning, because we all are learning, and our beliefs are changing. That's why, I don't really fight people over a lot of stuff, because it changes and evolves. Chris Garner says you gain wisdom looking at all sides of the story. Yep. Yeah, you got to get the bigger picture, man, because everybody has their own take on what happened, Everybody has their own take on what happened. Adam says, but sometimes a marriage just falls apart because the partner may not be spiritual or religious, and the partner gets frustrated because you live Christ and the partner does not, or you love Christ and the partner does not. Yeah, but there's duties and things that you must fulfill, that your love of Christ will keep you in. You know what I'm saying? I know people who say they love Christ, so they leave, and their partner don't, so they leave them, and they get with another woman who loves Christ, and you don't mess these kids up. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's or traded it. Well, they say that, but it's really deeper lying issues that they trade in their wife for a younger version, something that seems more, and it just keeps happening. It doesn't stop. They trade them in for a younger version. Pastors are doing it, man. Been in this thing for too long. You can fool some people sometimes. Can't fool all the people all the time. Yeah. Should be practical. Again, I would definitely agree with the man who said that. Your spirituality needs to be practical. People know how to trick people. I remember when I was like going through my stuff and being open and honest about my experiences, and I was talking about seeing lights in the sky and UFO, and I was tweeting about it and putting that stuff on putting on social media, and people were like, stay away from him. Don't let him come to your church. Don't let him, or whatever. Which is, hey, that's cool. Like, I'm a threat to your belief system. That's fine. But then there were people who were leaving their spouses and bringing, like, they were married to a woman, but then they cheated and brought the one they were cheating with to church, and they're accepted. Like, hold on, you're married, you got kids, but you're bringing a woman on the side to church, and they would still let them minister, and they would still let them do things in the body. It's like, hold on, this dude is running around on his family. Like, it's really weird, the stuff that they would allow to slide, and the stuff that they were for or against. So as long as you have the appearance of godliness or whatever, or you just repeat what they want you to say, you're good. But they didn't really care about the character. It's messed a lot of people up, man. Not caring about the character and what people are going through, struggling. As long as you can, do what we ask you to do, say what we ask you to say, perform these roles. Good friend of mine, I've interviewed him on here, was a worship leader, powerful worship leader, and churches used him. They wanted him to come in. They used him for his talent. Hey, we need you to come in here, do these songs, and blah, blah, blah. And the guy was struggling with overwhelming pornography addiction, and he wanted freedom, and they didn't care. He would tell people, they didn't care. They still let him get up and minister and do your thing, and then he would try to share what he was going through and be open and honest on stage while he was sharing. They told him not to do that, and it was several churches that did this, and then when he's like, look, I'm gonna step down from ministry. I'm not gonna be performing or playing music right now until I get my life in order. And then they didn't want nothing to do with him because he didn't have nothing to use people or businesses or what, because the church functions as, man, as long as they don't have no use for you, then you become another face in the crowd. You know what I'm saying? So when you have a talent or an ability, you let that go. So Adam says, the partner who does not love Christ leaves you. Again, with marriage, you're supposed to love each other first, right? That should be a thing. Like, why would you, that marriage and trust was started and built somewhere. Your faith and your religion, that should only amplify your love. You know what I'm saying? Versus being like a grounds for divorce. The Bible definitely doesn't. That's addressed in the Bible with someone who is not in the faith and that they're together. And it's like, is it grounds to leave? No, it's not. It's not grounds to leave. It's not grounds to leave just because they don't believe the same things. You think my wife believes everything I believe, the far out crazy stuff I believe? No, she don't believe. She hasn't experienced it. She takes my word for it. She has her own spirituality and that kind of thing. But for her not to, do the things I'm doing or believe what I'm believe, no, that you never find anybody who has like everything lined up with the same beliefs and things like that. But marriage is a partnership, man. And you need to find somebody who complete you or not go into was your other half or compliment you. So Adam says, I still struggle trying to bring spirituality to the household. My family still feels what I do is not important. It's just an Adam thing. Yeah, I mean, you might have to deal with that, but you know, it's helping you, man. You know, it's helping you be a better person. It's helping you hold your stuff together. It should help you, you know, be present even in other areas. You know what I'm saying? Which can get hard, right? Turning off the camera and, you know, stopping ministry and understanding that ministry is literally raising your kids, spending time with family and doing the stuff that they want to do versus them winning them over to what you want to do. And you'll find out that when you spend time with them, what they want to do, you'll indeed win them over to what you want to do, and not be something where, you know, dad loves his spirituality, dad loves his ministry more than he loves us. Dad loves, you know, would rather talk to people on the internet, you know, more than he would talk to us. And we got to address it. Like, that's definitely a thing. We have, you know, especially with having kids, you know, and then, you know, wanting to win the world, that you end up losing your household. There might be a time to unplug all of this stuff, you know what I'm saying, and get your house in order. The scripture says that if you don't provide for your family and take care of your house, you're worse than an unbeliever. You're worse than an infidel if you don't take care of your home. And so that should be the number one priority. And it gets hard. Trust me, it does get hard. Shelly says, I'm the spiritual leader within my home. I try to walk it out, and it's the fruit that my husband sees that usually brings him into agreement with what God is teaching me. There's so many testimonies of a wife or a husband that had an unbelieving spouse, but they stayed faithful and continued to pray, continued to intercede in the quiet chambers, praying for their spouse, that God would reveal himself to their spouse. And because they didn't give up on them, that they end up winning them over. And in the end, you hear those testimonies and the people are like, man, they never gave up on me. And even though when I tried to run them off or whatever, they stayed, or whatever the case is. And so there's so many testimonies that I've heard where that person stayed and stuck it out and prayed, and not just did their own thing, but literally prayed because they cared and they believed in the power of prayer for their spouse, and they won them over. And you hear the testimonies. You know, I heard someone say that people say, well, I fell out of love with the person. We just weren't in love. No, relationships change, relationships evolve. You fell out of love with them. Well, you could fall back in love with them, you know, that kind of thing, to stay together. Chris Garner says, I'd be dead or in prison without the balance my wife brings. Me too, for sure. Dead or in jail. Yep. It's good stuff, man. Practical. It's practical. You got to address it, man. Quit being a jerk. Quit being selfish. That should be some of the things that spirituality brings. And I know that it's in the Word of God. That thing cuts you to pieces, man. It's sharper than any two-edged sword. God will cut you to pieces with the Word as you spend time in it with an open heart. Not to teach. Like, you can't go into it like, okay, let me get something to teach the people. I mean, that's good. You're going to get stuff to teach. You know, that's just a given. But going in to learn for yourself, to seek God for yourself daily, into the Word and into worship, and just put you in this place where you're open. You become broken. You become soft like clay for God to mold you. Hence the fulfillment that you are the potter, I am the clay, and God is molding you. You have to allow him to mold you. You have to become soft. You have to become broken so he can put you back together. And it's a daily thing, something that we engage with the Father with daily. And so if you don't, return to your first love, stir up the gifts of the Spirit, stir up the things that God has given you. Deb says, we can marry wrong. I married a narcissist. Yeah, but I don't know, I'm just addressing the ones who are trying to find that excuse to think that the grass is greener on the other side. Again, I talked about it on the last stream. Like, I thought the grass was greener in India, the Indians and how they live life in India and spiritual, but they're looking over here for answers. We're looking to the east. They're looking for to us, you know. And I got people watching and it's this weird little. The grass isn't greener on the other side. The grass is greener where you water it. Water your grass, man. Water it. Spend time. Quit walking all over it. Let it grow. Let it grow. Hey, trust me. Stay together. Stay together for the kids. Got a guy, he was a close friend, and he left his family, and I told him not to. He did it anyway. Told him what was going to happen, told him what he was going to see. I said, if you're okay with another man taking your kids to the park and all that kind of, and being a dad, and, you know, that doesn't, you know, turn your stomach, but it was that newness, the strange woman that led him astray, as the scripture says in Proverbs, talking about the strange woman, the woman of the night. You know, the woman that's with a lot of men. You know what I'm saying? And pulled him away from his wife, and now it's killing him to see another man in his home. You know, being a father to his kids and stuff. You know, hindsight is always 20/20, man. Make sure I'm telling you, it's practical, man. All the woo-woo stuff don't mean nothing. That don't move me no more. Because you meet these people, then you know, people are wicked, bro. People you think are righteous. Ulterior motives. But they're good preachers. They're good Christians. Yeah, right. When they're asleep. Look. I hope you enjoyed this episode, man. You know, talking about the soul. What is the soul? What is the higher self? Connecting with God, man. Like, you got to do it for yourself. Go in for yourself. Get your own experience. Know for yourself. Choose this day who you will serve. Chris Garner says, I pity the fool to try to take what I got. Don't give it to him. Some people giving it away. It's folks envying you, bro. It's folks watching you, and they want what you got, bro. You got to understand that. It's somebody who can't wait for you to slip, watching what you got, and they just want to slide in, waiting for that divine moment. Be on your game. And it's on the other side, too. They waiting for you to slip, waiting for you or your wife to slip, and to wait for the right moment to petition you. Will you be strong? No. Step aside. Leave me alone. For real. That's what happens. Yeah, I guess that just means it's the end of this podcast. It's practical, man. Get on your game. Do what you got to do. Love y'all. We'll do it again. Make sure you join us Thursday nights for the School of the Mystics. Really excited about what God's doing on our Thursday night hangouts. And it's been really good. A lot of cool people, like-minded people building together in the Spirit of Christ. It's good stuff. Looking for online community. Make sure you check us out. Our Discord is in the description as well. Patreon. You get access to that through Patreon, even for $1. Like some people, you know, $1 is... You just sign up for the emails and all that kind of stuff. So check it out, guys. Shelly says, thank you for teaching and showing, TruthSeekah. I hit the end of this and was live with Spirit Force. So much teaching happening. For real. Yep. Praise the Lord. For sure. Definitely. Praise the Lord. Love y'all. Peace, peace.
Your will so much higher than mine. So much higher than mine. Your so much deeper than mine. So much deeper than mine.
Well, that does it for this episode, folks. To hear more episodes of the TruthSeekah podcast, head over to TruthSeekah.com. And if you're wanting to support the show and get rewards, go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/TruthSeekah.